And well, let's jump in.
I hate you.
Tom hates me. He hates me a lot, and for good reasons. From our friends at Bounding Into Comics, written by John F. Trent himself. Rumor: Disney CEO Bob Iger has scrapped 2 previously announced Star Wars films. The new rumor claims that Walt Disney Company CEO Bob Iger is scrapping at least 2 previously announced films. Wow, very exciting. I don't know why the Tron coaster is there. Was Tron going to be in Star Wars? Anyway, this new rumor comes from Scooper WDW Pro. Oh, wow. Imagine that. Pro.
We know that guy.
Yeah, I know that guy.
Never heard of him.
Yeah, he's got a show coming up later today. Anyway, he states, I am told 2 theatrical projects, 2 movie projects that were going to be taking place at Lucasfilm will not. Now, whether or not they make any kind of official statement about this, or whether they just go into the dustbin of history quietly, we will find out. So let's see. Wait, for whatever reason, my scrolling button is broken. Perfect timing. So accordingly, from there, Pro detailed that the 2 movies are. One of these, I'm told, is James Mangold's film. That movie is at least paused without ceasing. Let's say that. Mangold's film was recently announced back in April at Star Wars Celebration, which is a big nothing burger this year. In a press release, Lucasfilm provided a brief overview of the film. James Mangold will take audiences deep into the past, telling the tale of the first Jedi to wield the Force and harness it as a liberating power in an era of chaos and oppression. Well, isn't that always the case in Star Wars?
So it's Jedi Jesus.
There you go. Anyway, the Indiana Jones and Dial of Destiny director further elaborated about the film in an interview with Gizmodo. He said, when I mentioned to Kathleen Kennedy the idea that I had about going backward, really far backward, I was surprised that it excited her and the other wonderful people she works with at Lucasfilm. For me, it's about, I want to be part of a saga, but I also don't want to be holding so much lore in the air that you can hardly tell a story. And I really wanted to do what I told her was can we make a kind of 10 commandments of the Force, a kind of origin story of how the Force came to be known, understood, wielded, and harnessed. There you go. Lucasfilm President Kathleen Kennedy also informed the Dagobah Dispatch about how the film connects with Daisy Ridley. That was also announced at Star Wars Celebration. My goodness. So there's a lot of food for thought there. Okay, we'll move on. Later in the video,
real quick, Culture, didn't news drop either earlier last week or earlier this week or late last week that Del Toro was actually the one that came up with this idea of the going like 25,000 years in the past?
I wouldn't be surprised. So is that another director then who was working on a project who left?
Yep.
Well,
yep.
Yeah. I mean, Del Toro actually proposed, I think, something very similar to that. I think you're 100% spot on there.
Yeah.
That's not surprising. Yeah, that's not surprising, though, Nick. But I guess he said that the Taika Waititi film was also being scrapped. He stated the other movie that I have been told is essentially dead on arrival is the Taika Waititi film that he's been writing for. He may turn something in. He may get paid for it. I'm told it's dead. It's just dead. Maybe they'll pick it up in years to come. But right now, there's nothing behind it. Nothing behind it at Lucasfilm. So that's crazy. I don't know, fellas. What do you think? I surmise that probably everything Star Wars right now is getting a second glance. Andre, what do you think?
I'm unsurprised. I mean, this Taika Waititi project, I took that for granted a long time ago that this wasn't happening. Because that is something that was announced years ago. And as we know, the first step in a Star Wars project being cancelled is it being announced to begin with. So, that movie has gone full circle. The bigger surprise here is the James Mangold thing. Now, that is not a huge surprise when you look at the numbers for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
It's par for the course.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But here's like the thing, because this is something I'm surprised wasn't picked up by more. Because at this year's Star Wars celebration, 3 movies were announced. It was this one, taking place in the past. It was Dave Filoni's Mandalorian Roundup movie, taking place in the present, if you will. And it was the Rey movie, taking place in the future. For those paying attention, past, present, and future, what's that? That's an opportunity to basically reshape the entirety of the Star Wars franchise. You can now set up some drivel in the past, pay it off in the present in the Mandoverse, and then continue it in the Beyond the Future in the Rey saga, so that you have reframed all of Star Wars and removed George Lucas from it and really gone all Kathleen Kennedy. So this shifts that plan a little bit, but I'm not that surprised, because again, if something had to go, it's the past. It's not like a huge thing. What disturbs me more is that the project that we haven't heard is cancelled is the Rey movie, and that is the one that really needs to be cancelled. Unfortunately, this is the one that Bob Iger personally reportedly is pushing for. Because if you remember, when it comes to the sequel trilogy, he's as guilty as Kathleen Kennedy. Yeah, the training wheels came off with The Last Jedi, but he was there and took it away from George in The Force Awakens. So he has a personal vested interest in seeing the sequel trilogy actually work one way or the other, because otherwise that's pie on his face too. Problem is that he's obviously just throwing more good money after bad by continuing this stupid Rey movie. And it is stupid, and that's not the movie we're hearing isn't happening. But it needs to be. That is the one movie above any that needs to be scrapped and shut down. That's my thoughts, at least.
No, I think those are brilliant thoughts, and I'm with you. I think that if they just cancel everything that's being done in Star Wars and bring somebody in who really knows what they're talking about, somebody with a deep love and affinity of it, like they tried to do with Jon Favreau, I think they'd be more successful. But of course, we have our real Star Wars expert here, and Nick from EBN. Nick, what are your thoughts here? Are you encouraged that they're canceling these, or are you discouraged?
I saw it coming before it ever even happened. I mean, we've talked about it even on this show. We're like, if Mangold's Indiana Jones does not perform, that movie's not getting made. Given Lucasfilm's track record, that's always been the case. When they've brought people on in, Patty Jenkins in the Rogue Squadron movie, Wonder Woman didn't do good, and then all of a sudden her project's canceled. Dan and Dave last season of Game of Thrones didn't do well. All of a sudden they're not on board anymore. Mangold, Indiana Jones flops. Now his movie's getting canceled. The other than the Rey movie that Andre was talking about, the Lando movie, I don't see why they're making that. That's another one that should be canceled and should be on this list as well. Nobody asked for it. Nobody wants it. It's going to probably flop harder than Solo. I mean, you're making a movie on a side character of Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi and a side character of Solo. I mean, if you ever go to the Walmart, Target, anywhere where you can get action figures, there's always Landos on the shelves. Nobody is buying them, and nobody's going to go see that movie. So that's definitely another one that I think should be on the chopping block. I don't think it'll actually ever happen. I think Disney knows it's going to be a flop. Maybe they're just wanting them to write it and just see if it sounds like it would be a good project, but nothing you're going to write is going to be any good for that Lando movie. So it should be gone. But yeah, overall, none of this is surprising. I'm in complete agreement with you, Culture, on they just need to, at this point, fire everybody over there, minus a couple people, and get somebody else involved that actually knows what they're doing.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best course forward. And I know that Tom's not a big fan of Star Wars anymore. He's kind of on the
It's done.
Yeah, you're on the it's dead pathway. But Tom, do you have any thoughts on these films just being,
not surprised, as Andre said and Nick said, I mean, the Mangold one is kind of par for the course.
Right.
We knew once Indiana Jones failed, that would be her excuse not to have that one go forward. I agree that basically the only two we're going to see that's going to be the Filoni one and the Ray one.
Right.
So that's kind of where we're at, and to me, that's nowhere. It's a big step backwards again. I've lost faith in Star Wars since Gina Carano was let go. So.
Yeah, when she was not renewed. Yeah, man, that it really does feel like that's when everything kind of died. Like fan enthusiasm died would be probably a fair way.
Well, it took a little while for the fandom to catch up. I mean, yeah, it was a blow to the fandom when Gina was let go, or however you want to put it.
I submit that that's actually when it died.
That is the moment. It took a little time for it to happen, as far as like behind the scenes, because this was hot off, Luke appearing in the end of season 2. But Andre and I have reported many, many, many times what happened behind the scenes, and we wholeheartedly believe it.
Yeah.
That basically.
Sorry, carry on, Tom.
I was gonna say the short version is basically that, Filoni and Favreau had a handle on things, especially Favreau. But Filoni is somebody I've always said since day one, and people yelled at me and hollered at me, including even people like Jeremy of Geeks and Gamers, that I said, never trust Filoni. Don't fucking trust him. He's one of them. I never necessarily would have said that him and KK were in cahoots per se, but they're definitely within the same political sphere, where his agenda lined up with hers. It doesn't necessarily mean they had to be, in cahoots at all.
Yeah.
Because at the time when all this was going on, the reason why Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni had the free reins they did was because Kathleen Kennedy was being distracted by Blood and Bone, trying to get that off the ground.
Yeah.
And Chapek made one of the dumbest decisions he ever made. And that was when he told her to quit messing around with that and get over here and deal with what Lucasfilm is really all about. And that's, Willow, Indiana Jones, and Star Wars. And of course, that's the moment where everything went to hell. That's the moment when Gina Carano was ousted for whatever reason, and we all can kind of trace it back to her coming back. And at that moment, when Favreau had to compromise his vision. Not Filoni, Favreau.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of energy was lost as well, because I mean it really did take the air out of the balloon, so to speak. And I feel like that's 100%. So Tom, as usual.
Well, we knew something was up when in Boba Fett you've got 2 episodes of Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
you're like, wait a minute, what's going on here? Why is this a thing?
Not a lot of
he's not even in it at all, not even for a second.
Not a lot of great writing, and I guess that is something that happened. I mean, you just lose gumption, and I think Favreau lost gumption, and too much got turned over to the animation guy, Filoni, and that's why everything feels pretty flat. We will get to Ahsoka later, folks.